In Austin, I'm Mark Mullins. A teachers union is suing the Texas Education Agency over investigations it launched into educators who criticized conservative activist Charlie Kirk following his assassination in September. In doing so, the teachers union says the state agency crossed a constitutional line. Here's reporter Daniel Perot.
The consequences.
The Texas AFT is accusing the Texas Education Agency of carrying out a wave of retaliation against public school employees over personal, sometimes private, social media comments they made after the assassination of conservative political activist Charlie Kirk.
It was about muzzling the expression of constitutionally protected nonviolent speech.
In a September letter, TEA Commissioner Mike Morath directed superintendents to report what he called reprehensible and inappropriate content related to Kirk's death.
There's an issue in conduct in classrooms. That's one thing. This is private conduct.
The TEA says it received more than 350 complaints in September. Of those, 95 are still under investigation. Texas AFT says Morath's letter led to members being unjustly put on leave, reprimanded, and fired.
TEA's overly broad language makes it nearly impossible to know what is and isn't acceptable.
The lawsuit says the TEA policy has led to arbitrary and inconsistent enforcement across the state. Federal courts have ruled vague policies could violate the First Amendment because they could chill protected speech.
I've never seen something in modernity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it looks like what happened in the 1950s.
The teachers union says its members are now scared to share opinions publicly or privately on matters of public concern, worried the state may not agree with their viewpoint.
Teachers right now, if something happens in America, they don't know what they can or can't say. You don't want to put anybody in that situation.
That was Daniel Perot reporting. A spokesperson for the TEA says the agency could not comment on pending litigation. The union is asking the court to declare the policy unconstitutional. The man accused of killing a Caldwell County constable deputy in North Austin now has bond set at $2 million. 38-year-old Thomas Vences is facing capital murder charges in Sunday's shooting at Club Rodeo on North Lamar Boulevard. Deputy Aaron Armstrong was working security at the club when he was shot just before 2 a.m. Police say Armstrong asked Vences to leave, and later in the parking lot, Vences shot him. Armstrong returned fire but later died at Del Seaton Medical Center. Another man, Ronaldo Calindres Simon, was charged with assault on a peace officer after police say he ran over Armstrong's arm while trying to get away from the club that night, and his bond was set at $100,000. Austin ISD leaders say they're working with the FBI to investigate a social media threat that named 3 AISD campuses. District leaders say the threat mentioned 14 schools statewide, including Andrews, Baranoff, and Barrington Elementary schools in Austin. The threat included a photo of someone in a mask with firearms, but did not mention a time or a date. Administrators say district police are increasing patrols at those campuses. They're asking anyone who sees anything suspicious online to report it. Cuba is closely tied to Venezuela. Officials there say that 32 of its security officers were killed in the U.S. strike on Venezuela that led to Maduro's arrest. Many people in Cuba now say they've lost a close ally. But here in Central Texas, some Cubans say U.S. intervention could be a good thing for the island nation. Reporter Kelsey Sanchez explains.
All eyes are on Venezuela's allies after ousted President Nicolás Maduro was captured over the weekend. One of its strongest, Cuba, which Secretary of State Marco Rubio signaled could be the U.S.'s next target.
The Cuban government is a huge problem. First of all,
is that a yes?
Cuba, but I don't think people fully appreciate. I think they're in a lot of trouble, yes.
Austinite Celine Medina says she still has family in Cuba and said she felt joy over the news Maduro and his wife were removed.
I felt happy for all Venezuelans that live there and also the ones here who are fighting for the ones in Venezuela. And I feel like they're going to feel like their country is free.
Medina says she came from the country 4 years ago and described the dire desperation Cubans face daily at the hands of Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who recently said the Cuban-Venezuelan alliance won't go down without a fight.
Cuba es difícil.
The situation is complicated because things are difficult in Cuba, difficult for the people who live there. There's no food, there's no electricity, no water.
A sentiment echoed by Cuban native Anthony Suarez, who says he was happy for the people of Venezuela.
No one deserves to live under tyranny or an oppression like that. They should be able to decide for themselves and not have barriers. And honestly, it was incredible.
While it's unclear whether threats alone will put pressure on the Cuban government, the future of the island looks complex. According to UT professor of history and public affairs Jeremy Suri, he believes Cuban leaders aren't worried.
I don't think the Cuban government is afraid at all. I don't think they're concerned in any deep way. They recognize that the United States did extricate Maduro from Venezuela, but we have no occupation force in Venezuela right now. We're talking about running the country, but there's no evidence that we're putting any force behind that.
Suri also pointed to the Cuban government remaining defiant over many failed attempts at U.S. intervention.
Cuba looks small, we look big, but they have more than a century of experience resisting American influence. So anyone who thinks that whatever we do is going to be easy doesn't know that history.
For Cubans here in Austin, they can only hope to taste some freedom. In Round Rock, Kelsey Sanchez, KVUE News.
Central Texas is getting a boost from a Taiwanese electronics manufacturing company. The Fortune 500 company is converting a building into its first U.S. production facility in Georgetown. It's located near Southeast Inner Loop and I-35. The company makes everything from desktop computers to smartwatches for major brands worldwide. Williamson County commissioners approved a performance-based tax abatement to support the project. The agreement includes accountability measures to make sure job creation commitments are met. Pegatron plans to hire hundreds of workers with at least 100 jobs in the first 3 years. The Pegatron facility opens next summer. Get ready, Austin. The Coca-Cola Sips and Sounds Music Festival is back at Auditorium Shores this March. These are some of the views from last year's festival. This year's lineup is stacked. Christina Aguilera and Calvin Harris will headline, alongside Major Lazer Sound System, Foster the People, Group Love, and Steven Sanchez, plus many more. The festival kicks off on Friday, March 13th and runs through the 14th. Tickets for both days are already on sale. And those are the headlines in Austin. I'm Mark Mullins.